So today we have Kirk and Linda Hall. Linda's going to be in the background. Kirk has had Parkinson's for how many years? Since
14.
1991. 14, but you were diagnosed first with an essential tremor in 1991. Parkinson's in 2008. I was diagnosed in 2009. He is a well-known Parkinson's patient, advocate, author, and speaker, as well as a husband of 53 years, the father of 2 boys who are 50 and 47, and a grandfather of 3 girls and 3 boys. He has been working with his movement disorder doctor, Benzie Kruger, and they discovered a shared vision of a patient-centered approach to palliative care, approach to Parkinson's care in 2014. This evolved, I can't reach, I'm sorry. This evolved into Dr. Kruger's creation of a palliative care clinic at the University of Colorado Hospital. Kirk and his care partner wife, Linda, have helped provide a patient caregiver perspective to the development of PD palliative care at both the national and international level. And they receive their palliative care services at UCH, which is University of Colorado Hospital. I've known Kirk for quite a while. He was one of the first bloggers who was out there when we were both diagnosed. There were very few bloggers out there. I think I could only find a couple. And you wrote a book called Shaky Paws Grandpa, if I recall. And anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Kirk, and Linda may chime in occasionally. So welcome, Kirk and Linda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, Linda's here next to me, and she's not going to be participating a great deal because of a broken arm that's got her a little under the weather and a little
Camera shy.
there you go. But because I have Parkinson's, you may not be able to tell from my facial expression that I'm extremely happy to be able to talk to you about this subject. It means so much to me. It's something I've been involved in for quite a while, and so just know that I'm thrilled on the inside if it doesn't show. The things that I hope to be able to accomplish with you today in terms of what I want to share is how palliative care for Parkinson's got started and what it is and why it is important. So those 2 things are going to be my focus. Okay, the first slide that was going to show is just more about my background, and we don't really need to cover that a great deal. You've heard some of that. There've been 2 palliative care projects. The first one was a study that was funded by PCORI, Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute, back in 2015, 2016. And that was the study that looked at standard care versus palliative care and provided feedback from patients and care partners in terms of how they responded to those 2 different types of services. And what came out of that was a clear preference for the palliative care services. And that has really been the impetus for going forward from there. But I wanted to share with you, how they characterize their preference for palliative care. They were specifically mentioning the team-based nature of care, the interaction with care partners. That was very unusual. They didn't get much of that at all through standard care. If so, only infrequently, and it's a central focus of palliative care. And also the holistic focus of palliative care in looking at your well-being from a variety of different standpoints, your mental health, your emotional health,
Spiritual health.
Spiritual health, yes. So the next slide is going to be just a reiteration of something that I said on a variety of occasions when I've been asked about palliative care. My statement has been that I don't know of anything that has the potential to improve the lives of people with Parkinson's more so than palliative care.
Other than a cure.
Other than a cure. You know, it just became very clear to me rather early in the process that this was just huge for those of us with Parkinson's and our care partners and our families. When you understand the context of palliative care and what it covers and what it does to improve quality of life at all stages of the disease, you'll understand why it is so important and why I'm so excited to talk about it. The fourth slide. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. These are milestones that I thought would be interesting in terms of how palliative care has evolved, how it was born, how it has grown, what were the important steps. The first thing is not even on the slide, but Sharon, I don't know if you were at Montreal World Parkinson Congress. What happened there was I consider to be the big bang moment for Parkinson disease palliative care. And I say that because there was a great deal of discussion about all things patient-centered and patient-focused and patient this and patient that. You know, all of a sudden it seemed that we were front and center, whereas in the past we were there, but we were kind of a secondary focus, and the main focus was on the process. So it was really a major step forward in the eyes of people like me and other advocates that we would be valued for what we had to share about our experience with Parkinson's, as well as all the other patients with Parkinson's, that their input really mattered. So then okay, so we went through those two. I talked about the first study. The second major thing was after we got the great outcome to the initial study, was that PCORI, the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute, which funded the first study, also funded a follow-up. And the follow-up was for the Parkinson Foundation to commit to having all the centers of excellence around the country, 33 of them, participate in a program to undergo training and actually implement palliative care in each one of these centers. And that is in progress. The training is in the process of being completed. It's not happening at the same rate in every center, but where we're going to end up is someplace that's very exciting, because if you believe in palliative care, which I do, it's really a great thing to have the premier medical organizations in the country providing that service. So I think that says a lot about the perceived importance by the medical community. And now my job and the job of everybody that communicates with patients and care partners is to help them to understand what it is and why it's important. So the rollout through the Centers of Excellence is scheduled to be completed by the end of 2023. And then we'll be in a position to really go forward full speed and make sure everybody knows about this and has an opportunity to engage it. The next slide. These are the centers of excellence. As you can see, it's a who's who of medical facilities around the country. 33 of them that are in the process of getting up to speed. They're not up to speed yet to provide this service. Some of them may be, but it's going to happen in stages. But when we have all these up and running, it's going to be a very powerful statement regarding the value of Parkinson's palliative care. Next slide. Okay, the first thing I want to mention is that the name palliative care is confusing for many people. And so that was a major topic of discussion amongst people involved in the committees and so forth. So where we're at is that palliative care is what is called in the hospital setting. Part of the confusion, I will tell you, is that palliative care has been synonymous with hospice in England for years. So that has created some confusion. But the statement that we're putting out there is Benzie has used in particular. Palliative care is about living as well as possible for as long as possible. So that is a very clear overview of what palliative care is about. The second statement provides a little more context, in that it's designed to increase quality of life and minimize suffering for patients, caregivers, and families. All three are the focus, not just patients. And that is interactive between these entities and the medical community, holistic and team-based. So that is an initial definition to help you understand what it is. Next slide. Okay, what it does, and we've talked about quality of life, offer support to help patients live as actively as possible, which is very important. Staying engaged with your passions and the things that make life meaningful to each of you is extremely important to stay front and center as a focus of staying engaged is crucial. It offers support to caregivers and families, provides relief from pain and other symptoms, addresses psychosocial and spiritual issues. That would be the chaplain on our teams, and I'll describe the team members in a bit. And it seeks to minimize stress at diagnosis. This is very, very important because when we first started talking about palliative care, the focus was primarily on mid-stage and onward, dealing with the kinds of issues that we'll be talking about, advanced care planning and so forth. But one of the things that came through loud and clear was a dissatisfaction with many of our patients saying that the diagnosis experience was distressing, that there needed to be a focus on helping doctors to understand what patients want and need at the point of diagnosis and what things are not needed and make it more stressful. So there has been a lot of attention paid to that, and training is being provided to help doctors to understand and be able to respond to the needs that we've told them about. Next slide. What it is not, it has palliative care as a subject in general is always been associated in the past with cancer, but now it's being recognized as important and appropriate for people with all neurodegenerative diseases. And so the quality of life for cancer patients remains important, but the needs of people in neurodegenerative classifications has been added to it and is appropriate. Hospice and palliative care are not the same thing. Hospice is one part of palliative care that occurs late in the process, as you all know. So palliative care is a variety of things that happen in all courses of the disease, and hospice is one piece of that. It's not only for those near death, and it certainly doesn't constitute giving up on patients. Next. The members of the team that we talked about are first of all, the palliative care physician, a nurse, a social worker, and the chaplain. Those are typically the four standard members of a palliative care team. There is more and more inclusion of a fifth or sixth or additional players that are involved with things like occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and psychology. This is all based on the needs of the patient and the care partner. So it's customized to the needs of the patient and care partner.
Can I jump in for a second here?
Yeah,
I want to add
please.
one other thing. We have provided mentors for newly diagnosed women for the last almost 2 years. And it has been very helpful for them. And I think it should be part of the palliative care team, is having someone with Parkinson's that you can talk to. That you can, they provide valuable information on what it feels like to have Parkinson's and that it's not hopeless.
University of Colorado Hospital has that. Mhm.
Yeah, that is part of most of the programs that are out there, that there are individuals with Parkinson's or who have been care partners who are involved in focus groups, or not focus groups, but support groups and various kinds of interaction with patients to facilitate communication.
But that's an important point. Good thing to mention.
Very good point, Sharon.
Mhm.
Okay, next slide. Okay, advanced care planning is really a meaty part of palliative care, and a very crucial step. It's your opportunity to make your wishes and preferences known to your medical providers and family members in writing to minimize the chance of confusion. These plans can be adjusted at any time if properly documented. So they include the legal and medical personal documentation, last wishes, powers of attorney, medical powers of attorney, all the things that are going to direct people who are involved with your care regarding your wishes and what you want to have happen. The medical care directives, although I've mentioned all these things. And it's very important to consider the need to communicate what these wishes are with your family to avoid confusion, especially late in the process, so that you can avoid the chaos that sometimes occurs through that communication. Next slide. The best time for advanced care planning is something that we've given a great deal of thought to because there's tendency for people with Parkinson's to not want to engage advanced care planning. That they'd rather put it off and not have to deal with it. But it is a real opportunity, as I've said, to express what you want and make your wishes clear. And it is not, in our opinion, not a good idea to delay dealing with these questions, simply because as you advance with Parkinson's, there's typically or often more problems with thought clarity and cognition, which will make it more difficult. It can reduce the amount of time that's available to have those important conversations with your loved ones that will help them to understand and accept your wishes, which is very important. And the idea being that if you understand the importance of this process, go through it, once you have accomplished that, you can go back to living in the moment, which is what we all want. But you can go back to that with peace of mind, knowing that these steps are in place for the end of life. Next slide. Okay. If you go through all that, consider all the different reasons why it's a good idea and still are reluctant, I just throw this up on the screen as something that would be useful, which is to ask yourself what you're doing today to get yourself closer to where you want to be tomorrow. And that can be particularly useful if you can project yourself into the future, look back on the end of your life and describe it the way you want it to be. And in order for that to occur the way you want it to happen, it's going to require some thought and planning on your part. It's not going to happen in all likelihood by accident. So that's another way of thinking about advanced care planning. Next. The differences between standard or chronic care and palliative care. Chronic care focuses on disease-related medical symptoms. That's the idea is to be fixing people in standard care, whereas palliative care is looking at quality of life and all the things that contribute to quality of life. It's a different, and I should say it's not only different, it's one doesn't replace the other. You need to still have your standard care to address your symptoms and how you're going to deal with them and all the medical things, where palliative care is looking at the quality of life issues that contribute to your overall well-being. Second, with standard care, focuses on improving physical health. And as I say, it's well-being that's the focus with palliative care. Chronic care, the aim of chronic care is to prolong life. With palliative care, the focus is not that prolonging life isn't a good thing, but the focus is on quality of life and having your priorities and your preferences be honored, so that you can have the end of your life be something that happens the way you would like it. Focuses on patient and then focuses on person living with illness and the family. So the focus in palliative care, as I said before, very importantly, is not just on the patient, but also includes the care partner and the family, and the variable use of team approach in chronic care. And it's the ongoing mode of operation with palliative care to use the interdisciplinary team approach. Easy for me to say. Next slide.
You're okay. It's only 10:30, 11:30. You're fine.
Okay, unmet needs. Yeah, I see a comment coming up, and it is important to recognize that spirituality is not only a focus on religion. For many people, that is the most important part of their spirituality. For other people, it is not. So spirituality in all its forms is honored and paid attention to under palliative care. The unmet needs in the current standard care is that caregiver issues are often overlooked. Things like burnout, depression, stress, fatigue, and spiritual isolation. I have a good friend who went through a process with her husband. She had palliative care, and he died of Lewy body dementia. And the attention that was paid to her and her challenges and her issues that she had to deal with, which were so difficult for her, she was so happy to have those recognized and addressed. Just to have them on the table for discussion was a revelation for her. So that's a very important part of what palliative care does. Currently, only 5%, this is an approximate number, only 5% of PD patients use hospice, which is really a shame for, I think, everybody that I know that's had contact with hospice has seen the value of it in terms of managing the process in a way that adds to the quality of life and avoids confusion and chaos. This really is something that we need to plan for and make sure that it's something that's part of our considerations, at least. The high rate of hospital deaths is indication that people aren't engaging in this advanced care planning, and it's being put off, and as it says in the next steps, they're rarely being completed. And so that results in people dying in hospitals where most people or many people would prefer to die at home, under use of hospice and so forth. And finally, the undertreatment of non-motor symptoms, which can be the most difficult for people with Parkinson's, and yet they are under-recognized and undertreated typically. The next slide. This is a representation of what I see as the ideal situation, at least for me, that I would like to have this feeling of closeness and caring with my family and loved ones. It represents what I'm talking about that we're trying to avoid through advanced care planning. and results in a peaceful, chaos-free, regret-free conclusion. So peaceful is, you can understand, chaos-free, if we're scurrying around at the last minute, throwing together plans that haven't been well thought through, it's just something that I would want or hope that all of us would be able to avoid. And certainly what I don't want is for my family to look back at that period of time and have regrets about the way things happened. I wish we could have done this. I wish we had been handled this way. This is something you can plan for, you can discuss with them, and end up with what I'm showing here on the screen as a representation of what I hope we all would want, or I assume we would. So that is, I've kind of gone through this fairly quickly. I knew I wouldn't be able to cover everything. If there's anything in particular you'd like me to go back and discuss in more detail, I'd be glad to do that, plus answer any questions. And I would say finally that if you have more, you would like to get more information about palliative care and the International Neurological Palliative Care Society website is something you can look at inpcs.org. And that will give you access to all the information that you would want and need. So thank you for—
Okay, can you put the next slide up that has all the information there? Okay.
the website, yeah.
There it is.
inpcs.org there at the bottom. That Dr. Kluger is the president. He formed this organization. And as I said, he's been a driver of this concept right from the start. I'm proud to be able to say that I participated in that development with him, and was able to play a role that in representing the patient point of view.
Right.
So that has been my role in the development of palliative care. We just held our second annual conference. Memberships are available, but check out that website if you have more questions and question and answers.
Okay. We actually have on the call Sharon Berniston, who is a palliative care chaplain, and she had a few comments she wanted to make. So
Great.
thank you, Kirk. This was very important. And anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon for a couple of minutes, and then we'll go to the questions.
I am just so, first of all, I've participated in both the last two conferences over the last 2 years, and wanting to know how to kind of get more involved in the group. So really excited to have you talking about this topic. I also want to share with this group that I did something a couple of years ago for Sharon, for this group, on spiritual distress from a palliative care chaplain's point of view. I think we called it Alone in a Crowd, about spiritual distress and how I believe Parkinson's patients are particularly at risk for spiritual distress. One of the things I loved that you said was about the need for palliative care, like on diagnosis, because I think that is one of the top times where people have spiritual, emotional, psychosocial distress. And good palliative care practitioners are not interdisciplinary. I like to call them transdisciplinary, because in my team, I understand I work in a hospital setting. Okay, so most of my patients are going to be cancer or heart or something, stroke, because those are the people that the docs give us consults for. So I don't work in an outpatient setting. But when you're transdisciplinary, I understand how to identify pain. I understand how to identify symptoms. I understand the trajectory of the diseases I'm dealing with. But good palliative care physicians understand how to identify spiritual distress and psychosocial distress and know how to move people through the team in that way. But yeah, I'm also want to say one more thing about advanced care planning. And that is, I always say it's best to talk about this when things are calm. You don't want to talk about it, but talk about it when it's calm, not when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're getting phone calls, not when you've just ended up in the hospital and you're upset and worried and distressed. So it's much better to have a good conversation earlier on.
Yeah, that's very, very helpful. And thank you so much for those comments. I don't think I even mentioned that the initial part of that description that I gave was to address palliative, the advanced care planning during that period of time. That is around mid-stage, where you have much less, a much more calm compared to what it will be later when the wolf is at the door, so to speak. You know, that's not the time that you're going to be calm. So yeah, that's the ideal time to begin to think about it.
Actually, at our last meeting with our palliative care neurologist, she made sure that I had my advanced care planning needs also in order as Kirk's care partner.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Sharon. Let's see if there's any other questions in here. Carol Westdale asks if you go in palliative care, do you give up your movement disorder specialist? No.
No.
No,
You're not changing your doctors. You're just adding to your team.
that's
Correct?
right. That's right. That's, you know, I have a movement disorder specialist that handles my medication and our strategy for dealing with the day-to-day aspects of the disease. Whereas over in the palliative care, a team is in a separate location, and our conversations have to do with bigger picture, quality of life, kinds of things that are extremely important and just not part of what we do with our movement disorder doctor. So yes, absolutely. One does not replace the other.
And can I also join in with that? It's that sometimes, especially with Parkinson's, since we have so many non-motor symptoms and so many non-motor things that go on, we don't think to bring those things up to our neurologists, and our neurologists don't have the expertise in those areas. So that's why I think palliative care is specifically really great for Parkinson's, in that you may not even know that you should be bringing this up, but as you're talking about your quality of life and how you're having so much trouble sleeping, the person can go, oh, wait, that is a Parkinson's symptom, you know, or the care partners talking about how anxious, you know, and worried, you know, it's a way of sort of matching those things that people don't even know could be symptoms.
Yeah, that's so true. It's one of the things that we've talked about, the patients that have been involved in the advisory council, is our tendency to try to present our best side when we're with our doctors, and that we know that we shouldn't be doing that, but we can't help ourselves. It just seems to be the natural way that it happens. And to your point, in the palliative care scenario, in that environment, you can have conversations that have to do with counseling types of things, and those issues will come up. And strategies can come up to deal with them. So absolutely, thank you very much.
Okay, we have a few questions. I'm just going to read a couple. They kind of all relate. Deborah Cohen asked, how do you initiate or establish the palliative care team? Clara asked, how do we get our movement disorder doc on board? And Diane wants to know, at what point in the disease do you decide to find a palliative care specialist? And then I'll save the other question until you address those. So it's really, how do you get started with palliative care and when?
Okay, it's always the right time to engage palliative care because it impacts every stage of the disease. So there's no wrong time. In terms of how you're able to engage that, if you have a doctor that is not part of an organization that has palliative care, which is most of them at this point, or all of them at this, don't really have it in place. It's something that's being developed. They can still use palliative care principles, your doctor. And so it is to your benefit to encourage your doctor to learn about palliative care and how he can incorporate that into his treatment of you as well as other patients. You know, just taking the one example of diagnosis, you know, there's just a lot of opportunity to change the way people are left after that conversation is over, and what we like to have as the goal of that diagnosis meeting. It is a clear message to the patient and care partner that they will not go through this process alone, that they will be cared for and that their needs are going to be dealt with, and everything that can be done will be done, and not just tell them, don't worry about it. You know, it could be worse. All the horror stories that we've heard about what people are being told. So
I was thinking of the patient should be contacting their nearest center of excellence and asking for this program.
well, yeah. So we have the list that I put up on the screen, and I don't know if you have a way of communicating that to the group.
Yeah, I can. Well, first of all, I will send out the recording, but I am going to also write something up for my blog, and I will put that slide in the blog because I think it's so important for people to understand where they can go and how few places there are really that deal with palliative care. There's a need for, because I was looking at that, I go to UCLA and they're not on the list, you know, and
No, UC San Diego, you know, you can see who is being prepared to provide these services in your area, and that can be your point of contact to learn where they're at in the process and when they expect to be able to provide that service for you. I can tell you that right now you can get that service at University of Colorado Hospital. You can get it at the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center in Phoenix.
Florida.
You can get it at the University of Florida, and I'm sure other ones as well. But I would encourage anyone to contact the closest one to them, or any of them on this list, and ask them about when it will be available for them to engage in.
I think it's important. I think it's important for patients to let these centers know that they want it.
And can I also say too that the doctors in my hospital don't know what palliative care is when they put in a palliative care consult. So don't be discouraged if your doctor says, "Oh, no, you're not there yet." If you might have to educate your doctor a little bit,
Right.
and say, what I understand palliative care to be is about quality of life. So those are the services I'm looking for, is an interdisciplinary approach to quality of life. And that will dissuade them from saying, oh, you know.
Yeah, because they'll dismiss it without really knowing what they're talking about, frankly. And once I'm not putting down doctors in general, because they exist for our benefit, and they do a lot for us. But there is so much about these things like palliative care. They can only know what they know, and if they don't know it, you can encourage them to learn about it so they can provide what you want and need, and you'll help them by doing that.
Okay. We have one more question, which is from Ginger Halbach, which is interesting. Her granddaughter is the director of mental health facilities at the University of Minnesota. How can I get this info to her so she can incorporate it into care for people like me? She personally helps care for me with mid-stage PD and her mother who has multiple myeloma. So she understands the need, but how does she get the information?
Well, she can contact the INPCS
Yeah,
and learn what it is and how to get involved and what the benefits are. It's something that if they don't know anything at all and they're starting from ground zero, they're going to need to be able to talk to someone or an organization that can get them the information they need so that they can start moving toward being able to offer you that service.
so contacting that.
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I was a palliative care volunteer in Oregon before I moved to California. And I noticed on your team, you didn't have volunteers. And volunteers are a huge part of the palliative care program.
Okay, let me speak to that because they aren't part of the day-to-day delivery of service, but they absolutely are a key part of the team. So I apologize if I know I didn't make a lot of things clear here, but you're absolutely right. At the University of Colorado Hospital, we have a team of volunteers that play an important role in that. And I'm sure that's the case in the other organizations as well, but you're absolutely right. Very important.
And that's one of the services that we as Twitchy Women provide is volunteer mentors to women who are newly diagnosed or in stress with Parkinson's who need someone to talk to. So that's an additional person to the team. And if you feel that you need a mentor, let me know. And go to my website. You'll find I have a page with all the information, or just email me and I'll get you the information. But it's been very, very successful. Sharon is one of our volunteers, and we've had several mentees, I think.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I'm over talking, sorry, but I was mentored by somebody who was just fabulous. And Susan, if you're around, I love you. And now I'm mentoring people, but yeah, it's sort of working that palliative care approach that you're actually providing with that mentor program. But yeah, I think the doctors, we need more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, there goes my phone. Joyce wants to know if you can give examples of what type of care is provided in palliative care. Sorry. Okay.
Well, specific type of care, as we've said, it's not about delivery of a therapy per se, or when you say care, it elicits experience that we've had with treatments or medication and so forth. But one thing that is a type of care is hospice. And so that is a specific element of palliative care that involves a particular type of care. Otherwise, we're involved with concepts like the need to um, to conduct the diagnosis session in a way that doesn't create stress and angst for patients. Is not, specifically a type of care, but it addresses the quality of life and the state of mind and the amount of stress that's being put on patients and care partners. And that's true throughout all the advanced care planning is not a care item per se, but I think we could look at it and see absolutely crucial to quality of life. So that's why one is one, and they're separate entities, the standard care and the palliative care.
So I want to thank you so much, Kirk. And Linda, this was terrific. I think that everybody got something out of this. And, my takeaway is that palliative care begins with your diagnosis, where you need to bring in everyone that is helping you on your journey with Parkinson's. You don't want to wait until it's too late to do many of these things. A couple of other things, and usually at this point, I give a virtual tiara. Kirk, you get a virtual crown. Linda, you get a virtual tiara. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say enough thank yous because I think this has been a wonderful, wonderful program. So our scholarships for the World Parkinson's Conference, I thought I had taken this off. We have, I think, 9, and we have 3 more that we are going to be announcing in a couple of days. And these are women who will be going to Barcelona with us. And are the names there? I don't remember. Yeah, these are the women, the 9 who we have right now, and 3 more. We've had a couple who have had to drop out for various reasons. Next slide. And this is really exciting. We are booked through the end of March. And in 2 weeks, we have Malia Sacco, who is an occupational therapist that I went to, and she has a concept which she calls more than zero, which is a way of dealing with stress and sleep and other issues. That whatever you do is better than zero. And then we have speech therapy for Parkinson's, Judy Spencer and the World Parkinson's Choir. And then really exciting, Dr. Peter Tass from Stanford, who is the one with the vibrating glove, is going to be our speaker. So I know many of you have expressed interest in hearing from him, and I'm trying to get him to include me in his next phase. And then urban polling will be returning with some exercises. So if you have your polls, you'll be able to learn some exercises with it. And if you don't have polls, you'll learn about why you should have them. And one thing I forgot to put up was there is a questionnaire, a new survey out on the Fox site, and I will put that out on my website today. They're having a survey on women and Parkinson's, which everybody can fill out, and I encourage you to take part in this. It's really important that as many women as possible respond to this survey. And I think that was, is there anything else? Oh, as usual, we have our open mic on Tuesday morning, where we have our chat group run by Shelley Savoy. And then on Sunday mornings before our regular meetings, we have Switchies with our partners, and that's going very well as well. And I think that is it on my end. If you want to stay on, if you have more questions or you would just want to chat, you're welcome to stay on for a little while. Otherwise, we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And it's been wonderful seeing so many of you in the new year. Happy New Year, and may it be healthy and wonderful for everyone.